Without further ado, I'd like to present or introduce our first presenter. This is Mr. Bret Graham.
Okay, so, right, yes, bird. Okay, so, good morning, everybody. Thank you all very much for coming to my Masterworks presentation called The History of 2D Animation, History and Practice of 2D Animation. So, how I got into animation. It all started when I was a little kid, when I was watching TV. So, when I was about 8, or no, not 8, like 5 or 6, I was just about to finish my 1 hour limit on the TV, and I saw an ad for a show called Go Diego Go, and I asked my mom if I could go over my 1 hour limit and watch it, and she said, okay. And I watched it, and I basically fell in love, and that's what sort of started everything. So, in order to make an animation, you have to know how it works. There's a little something called persistence of vision, and the definition is that persistence of vision refers to the optical illusion whereby multiple discrete images blend into a single image in the human mind, and believed to be the explanation for motion perception in cinema and animated films. So simply, you see a bunch of pictures in a sequence, and your brain puts it into one moving picture. So, history. The first form of animation was 5,200 years ago in a Mesopotamian village. It was of an ibex jumping up and getting leaves off of a tree. The first form of true animation was the zoetrope. The first animated movie was made in 1900. It was called Enchanted Drawing. Humorous phases with funny faces was the animation that popularized this form of art, and in 1910, animation was recognized as an industry and was now offering paying jobs for animators. The types of animation that I learned included the zoetrope, claymation, stop motion, cutout stop motion, and cartooning. I'm going to be starting out with the zoetrope. So, as I already mentioned, it was the oldest form of true animation. It was supposedly made by a man named Ding Huan around 100 BC. There are 3 types: the classic zoetrope, the subway zoetrope, and the 3D zoetrope, the 3D being the coolest of all of them. And it was reinvented by William George Horner in 1834. So how it works, there are slits on the thing, as you can see, and in between the slits, that's where the pictures go, and when you spin it, the parts in between the slits split up the pictures, so it doesn't make one blending image. It's over there, if you guys want to see it after the presentation. I saw a couple of you guys over there stand up a little. You can come up and check it out, as well as all those there. Claymation. So, the first claymation was created in 1912 and was called Modeling Extraordinary. Helena Smith Dayton, who was the first female animator, was hired in 1916, and 1950 was the first time that claymation was put on TV. That show was Gumby. So, how it works. After every picture, you move the character a little bit, and then you take a picture, you move the character, you take a picture, you move the character, then you keep doing that over and over until you have a finished product, and then you put it in an animation software or an editor, and then you edit it, and then you've got a claymation. Stop motion. The picture up there is my setup down in my basement. Remember that image, because I'll be talking about it later. Albert E. Smith was made the first stop-motion animation called the Humpty Dumpty Circus in 1897, and Georges Méliès created the first film with stop-motion special effects in 1904. Fun fact, the 4-legged walkers in Star Wars Episode 4 were made using stop-motion. And in 1975, a stop-motion earned an Oscar for the first time. This was achieved by a short film called Closed Mondays. So how it works, it's the same as last time. You move it, take a picture, move it, take a picture, edit it, and you're done. But it's a lot more complicated than that. Cutout stop motion. So Lot Reiniger was the first person to create a cutout stop motion. This film was called The Adventures of Prince Achmed. Monty Python's member Terry Gilliam popularized cutout stop motion by making comedy sketches, and Blue's Clues was my favorite cutout stop motion show. And South Park's first episode was cut out stop motion, and then they moved over to computer animated stop motion due to timing reasons. So how it works, same as last time. We would take a picture, edit it, and then you're good. And then finally we have cartooning. So it all started with the silent era back in 1906 with the animation humorous phases of Funny Faces, and it ended with Steamboat Willie, which was the first appearance of Mickey Mouse in the early 30s. With Steamboat Willie, it got extremely popular because it's more entertaining watching something with sound. And it's, if it wasn't for Steamboat Willie, animation or Disney wouldn't be where it is today, being one of the most popular things on the planet right now. Oh, wait, hold on. Fun fact, if you wanted to create an animation using the traditional technique that is 90 minutes long at 24 frames per second, which is the standard movie length, movie frame rate, it would take 129,600 drawings. And for a 100-person team, that each person would have to draw 1,296 drawings. That team does not include the storyboard artists, the directors, the script writers, the layout artists, and the special effects editors. Fun times. So, the elements of animation. Everything goes through this process if you're creating something, and it all starts with pre-production. So, you start with a script, and it's basically a written storyboard with literally every single thing written down. So, if the character was going to drink a bottle of water, you would write that down, and if whatever the character was going to say, you would write that down, and how he's going to say it. And once that's done, the script is passed on to the storyboard artists. The storyboard artists essentially just draw the detailed comic of the scenes in the animation. Each square of the comic would have what the character would do, so like pace back and forth, play with Lego, whatever. And then the storyboard literally has to have every single thing that is happening in every single scene, and every single camera angle, and how long each movement should be. And then once that's done, it's passed on to the layout artists. The layout artists are responsible for figuring out where the camera will be facing, if it's a claymation, which background will be used where, if it's 2D, dialogue breakdown, which is how the character would say something, and the scene length, because you need a estimated time on how long the movie will be. And once everything's figured out, it is passed on to key animators, which will lead us into production. This consists of two things, key animation and key assist animation. The key animators are responsible for drawing each of the keyframes for each scene, so that's every 5th or 10th frame. And once that's done, the drawings are passed on to the key assist animators. The key assist animators draw all the frames in between the keyframes, so that's called in-betweening. The picture up there explains it pretty well. The ones on the far right and left are key drawings, and then the in-betweens are all in the middle. And then, once that's done, it goes to our editing crew. That will lead us also into post-production. So, the sounds are recorded and implemented into the animation, and very rarely, but not too rarely that it doesn't happen, there are changes to the scene, and but the reason that it doesn't happen very much is because if it did, you have to redo literally every single step so far to do like one little thing, and then after that, the special effects are implemented, so gunshots, explosions, etc. Keep in mind, all this happens only for feature films, so like Castle in the Sky or Totoro. But for like shows like SpongeBob or whatever else there is, you skip most of the steps. Animation techniques. I learned a couple of them: looping, holding, background reuse, and in-betweening. Looping is just taking a couple frames and looping it over and over again. Holding is using one drawing over and over again as to not get the Boyle effect. I'll talk about that later. Background reuse is when you freeze everything in the frame except for the mouth, and then once the character is done talking, everything moves again. And this is mostly found in anime, cheaply made anime. And then I learned in-betweening. So you draw each of the essential frames first, and then you draw in the rest of the frames. So for example, a guy throwing a ball, you'd only draw the arm wind up when it's halfway through, then the throw. Now, my animations. So all my animations are about why you shouldn't have birds as pets. So at the beginning of the year, I was originally going to do something about why you shouldn't keep birds as pets. I had all my advisors set up, and then I changed my mind. So I decided to keep the theme of birds in dedication to those advisors. So my animations are in claymation, stop motion, cutout stop motion, and cartooning. Keep in mind that they are all extremely short. The longest one is 19 minutes. 19 seconds. They're all very short because this is all extremely difficult to do, even a small segment. It took me on average about a couple hours to do just the shooting, and that doesn't include the editing or anything else. So I'll show each animation at the beginning, then I'll talk about some challenges. I'll tell you the story and talk about the challenges afterward. So here's the first one, claymation. That's the first one. So the story is that birds poop on people all the time and are very messy. A couple challenges that I had was that I didn't know how to set the lighting and the backdrop whatsoever, so that's why the lighting kept fluctuating so much. The aerial shot was done without the tripod, and my mom just held it very, very still. Zooming in. I also, for whatever reason, I found it very hard to make the colors for the clay that I wanted. That took a very long time. And making all the heads look the same, it was pretty difficult. All the heads are in that tin can over there. And for whatever reason, it took me 3 months to find the export button on the video editing software until my brother Chai found it. So here it is again. I'll explain a little bit about what was happening during the scene. Notice how the lighting keeps changing so much. Also, we had to change the heads every time, and it was also very hard to get the heads looking the exact same way as it was the last time. So I'll conclude this one. Let's move on to the stop motion. Now, the story is that birds can potentially be loud and very annoying. The aw and the very loud squawking noise, that was my mom. She's a pretty good voice actor, if I do say so myself. So for both of the stop motion and the cutout stop motion, I had to do all the pictures upside down, because if you remember from the picture of my setup, there was a wall right here, and my setup was right here, so I couldn't get behind this the camera and looking through there. So I had to do everything upside down. I had to hold the lens in the right position because the lock function didn't work, so I just had to hold the lens the whole time. And also I had to hunch over for long amounts of time and move all the cutouts on my own. Also, the frame rate, I had a frame rate issue putting all the stuff together, and Rick, one of my advisors, saved me there. That also happened with the cutout stop motion. So here's again. This was a second draft. The last one was very, very, very interesting. Okay, so here's the third one, cutout stop motion. Okay, so the story here is that birds get eaten by other pets all the time. That end face is a burp face, by the way. It looks like it's sort of something from hell. But so a couple challenges that I had they're kind of similar to the last one. I had to work upside down, I had to hold the lens, I had to hunch over. I also found cutting out the macaw and the cat extremely difficult for whatever reason. Also, moving the cat and the skateboard at the same time were very difficult because they're two separate things. So I decided to put a piece of paper underneath it and just move it along with it. So that kind of solved that. Also, I wanted it to be like Terry Gilliam's animations. So that's why a bunch of random stuff happens in it, like the cat coming in on a skateboard, the cat's face going very big when he bites down. So here it is again. That was a piece of paper. Yeah. So here's the last one, cartooning. This is the longest one of 19 seconds, a record breaker. Okay. So the story here is that birds can potentially live longer than people, like a lot longer than people. So a couple challenges that I had. The software that I was using had a very bad delay when I drew. So you draw something, and then 5 seconds later the picture would turn out, and that picture was completely bad, so you had to redo it. And then, yeah, it took 5 hours to make each of those drawings. No, it took 5 hours to make that the whole sequence of drawings. Then the software, as I already said, was broken, so I couldn't export it as an editable file. And then Rick and Brian both saved me again. They're my advisors. Yeah, also, I couldn't really figure out how to draw very well, and that's why I had a couple of drawing lessons before this with Bill Hoops, and my drawing was a lot worse then. So here it is again. Okay. So, conclusion. That's how I normally end all my presentations. So, although all these animations took a lot of work and a lot amount of time, English is hard. I had fun trying all the different styles of animation, and I learning more as I went along. I now have an incredible appreciation for animators now because I see what they go through, and it's pretty bad. Well, it's pretty fun, but it's pretty hard to deal with. Yeah. So I'm going to move on to thanks. So I would like to thank my advisors, Brian and Rick, and their families for support and such. I also like to thank my mom and dad, of course. Mom for helping me get the shots done, Dad for giving me ideas and stuff like that. Also, learning support staff, including Diana, Jen, and Amanda, for helping me get the paper done and other stuff. Bill Hoops for teaching me how to draw well, and my brothers for not wrecking my setup. Also, my previous advisors, Jenny May and Bree, who got me into my love for birds. My aunt, Terry Lynn, for helping me do some cutouts. And Tim Booth, who made my basically everything, like about the setup. He made the setup, and it helped me very much. And finally, I would like to thank you guys for coming to my presentation and everyone that supported me. So.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ted Spear. I'm the head of Island Pacific School. It's my duty and honor and pleasure to make an important announcement. I'm pleased to announce that Mr. Bret Graham, after doing thousands of hours of shooting and editing and paper writing and presentation preparation and then presentation, has now completed all the requirements for his Masterworks.